engage in the basics. You know what the basics are. You know what that you if you think you're communicating, double down on that communication even more.
Yeah. Mike, you were around when were you around? Obviously, you were around during the like 2006 to 10 period of time in the mortgage space.
Yeah.
What were you around in the previous one? When was that? In the late 90s, early 2000s?
Oh, 02. 02, correct. Now I've been lending since 88, so quite some time. But
Yeah.
It's definitely changing on the market right now and getting back. The folks that have been in the market for the last 3 to 5 years, especially from a loan officer perspective, they've never gone through what we're dealing with right now. They don't understand, or they're understanding very quickly the margin compressions and the fact that lenders don't have premium pricing anymore. But the one thing that I definitely preach and make sure that everybody is exercising is spread your audience. The fact is that, you've got to get beyond the realtor base. You've got to get back into the roots of the financial advisors, the insurance agents, the CPAs, the attorneys. In challenging times and tough times creates unique situations for the consumers that who are they going to turn to? Then maybe they don't want to sell their house. Maybe they need to protect their house, but they're going to talk to their attorney. So, going out and building your network and sphere of influence beyond just the realtor base is important. But at the same point, think about your realtor base. A lot of them have been in the business for maybe 3 to 5 years, the same time frame as the average loan officer today, and they've not been through situations like this, and they're used to, going from we need gap coverage on every file, on every purchase to offset the appraisal, to now we need 2-1 buy downs. And that's the topic of the day, is how do we get the 2-1 buy downs? Well, the challenge of the 2-1 buy down is it can only be paid for by the seller or paid for by the lender.
Yeah.
Well, the lender doesn't have the premium, doesn't have the margin in their rate to be able to absorb that cost with where the bond market is right now. So it's got to come from the seller side. And we're starting to see that become more consistent, that the sellers are willing to give the money as a seller concession because they know the buyers are in the situation of rates have doubled in the last 6 months. How are they going to afford to buy it if they, what they could afford 6 months ago is completely different today. But educating your realtors in regards to how to word the addendum in regards to the seller concessions, if the seller concessions can be directly earmarked towards the points and the discount buy downs, the cost of buying down the rate, then that portion of money can be moved over to the seller paid obligations and removed from the points and fee trigger from the buyer side. So you only have 3% to work with on the buyer side unless it's bona fide discount points, but moving a portion of that money over allows the buyer to add more to that buy down rate.
I did not know that. That's very creative. Yeah. So you're saying that you don't have to eat into your 3% as long as you structure the deal correctly.
As long as, and get with your attorney or counsel or corporate office to get their opinion of this. But, if you look at the CFPB verbiage of it, if it's a seller paid obligation, that's not included in the points and fees. Yeah. So you've got to find a way to move that over to have the seller pay that on behalf of the buyer and not affect the points and fees trigger.
So you mentioned education as a part of really what's important today, not only just to stay top of mind with your referral partners, but also is making sure that the marketplace understands what's needed to kind of keep the ball moving forward. And so you're saying, talk to your real estate agents, educate them about these products and about this process. What is sort of your favorite way of getting in touch with your sphere and letting them know what's happening and how to deal with it?
We utilize the mobile cards quite regularly and send messages, whether it's text messages out to our agents or our referral partners. And at the same point, getting back into when you didn't have the time to do the seminars and the lunch and learns because you're so busy, now you have to make the time. You've got to just fill your calendar full of getting out, having an audience, whether you're doing it by in person or in Zoom. But we're just finding more and more, they're starving for information. They're asking for coaching and guidance as to how to counsel the consumers, but you've got to get both in front of the realtor partner and the consumer to be able to start identifying and building a blueprint that they can follow and get themselves into a situation that they can afford the house or be back into that financial ability. Or how can they deal with today's rates and have a plan in 12 months from now or 24 months from now to get out of that rate? And the whole, cliche of marry the house, date the rate, that sounds good, but they need a plan. What does that look like? So you're doing a lot more education. You're doing a lot more, guidance, both pre-closing and post-closing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of those things that I heard recently, I can't remember exactly from who, but when the market moves like this, not unexpectedly, we can't always have, amazing rates for, forever. It creates some hard times, like in 2008. I mean, well, I don't know what percentage was, but it was a significant, probably half the mortgage industry essentially wasn't doing loans anymore, and they let their license go. What's that saying? Hard times create tough men. Tough men create good times.
Right.
Good times create weak men. Weak men create tough times. And so we're kind of going through this cycle right now where
I think that works in politics too. Just remember that.
for sure. Yeah. It absolutely does. And I think it's just the general state of the economy today we're going through that cycle. And this is the time when tough people are going to come out the other side in a better place, and not to put too many cliche topics into one conversation, but there is blood in the streets, so to speak, and the people who are going to make the money are the ones who stick to it, and that they're ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, have a plan and engage in the basics. You know what the basics are. You know what that if you think you're communicating, double down on that communication even more.
Yeah. The other thing I find is it's easy to get discouraged when you don't see movement right away, right? So like if you send out an email to a select group of realtors, or you're calling, for half an hour and you're not getting the feedback you want, it's easy to get discouraged by the early resistance you have. Well, like you're polishing your skills, you're learning how to write a copy, you're learning how to pick up the phone and meet people and meet realtors and how to provide value. It's only going to get better. Every single repetition you make is only going to get better. And so if you can push forward through with the hard things, right, that's going to put you in a much better place in a month when you're much more polished and you're able to go out there and communicate effectively what really matters to the people you're talking to.
Right.
And it's like going to the gym, right? It's painful at first, but you got to get there and you got to do the work.
Well, Michael, and that's my point. When you think you're communicating with your agents and your referral partners, you've got to do more. You've got to talk to them more. You've got to send an email. You've got to leave a voicemail. You've got to just call every week. Just, you got to go through the grind. They've got to know that you are one call away. You're available, not 24/7, but you're available, not during business hours, weekends, evenings, whenever they can call, you're going to respond back.
Yeah.
If they call or text you, you're responding back.